Hi, this is Catherine Henry from Palpable Media, and today I'm delighted to have with me the two co-founders of Spaces. Spaces is a content creator for virtual reality that now brings 3D to your Zoom calls. So those of you who spend a lot of time on Zoom conferencing but find that the 2D is too flat and too limiting, I think here is the great solution that you'll want to hear about. With me today are the two founders. We've got Shiraz Akmal and Brad Herman. Hello, gentlemen.
Hi, Catherine.
Hi,
And they're going
Catherine.
to tell us about, how they evolved. Hi, Spaces VR. And Shiraz, before you were telling me that recently you pivoted, that you came from DreamWorks and were a VR content creator. Can you tell us about that initial jump and why you thought, and the value proposition there?
Yeah, absolutely. So Brad and I started Spaces at DreamWorks Animation, where we were heading up all of the VR, AR technology at the time. We spun out as an independent company, Spaces.com, focused on theme park attractions, building VR-enabled, futuristic attractions you'd find in the mall, theme parks, arcades. A month ago, not even a month ago, 25 days ago, as you know, as millions of people were affected by the COVID-19 pandemic, we found ourselves at home, where I'm at right now in my son's bedroom, trying to figure out how we're going to pivot and survive as a company, because our entire business was wiped out. And so with that, we launched Spaces, a VR tool to connect people from applications like Zoom to the VR world. And with that, my co-founder, Brad, can show you how it works.
Okay, well, that sounds really exciting, because I know a lot of people feel that, Zoom call is just another one, and yet it doesn't really bridge the gap. And one of the things I've been talking about a lot in the series that we've been doing on Wednesdays at 3:00 every week is talking about how to bridge the gap so that people can get back to business, work, collaborate, create, and communicate more effectively. And, right now, of course, there is the challenge of getting VR headsets. So obviously not everybody can make that jump quite as quickly, but there will be a lot of people, especially on the creative side, across industries, but especially AEC and in education, et cetera, who will have access. So here's a great way of bringing 3D into that Zoom call. And I'm so excited that we have with us your partner, Brad. Brad, hi.
Hi there. How are you doing today, Catherine?
I'm great. Now, where are you now? Because you have a very different screen look than ours.
Right. So I am here inside of Spaces. I am in the infinite void that is VR, and I have this environment to work with to actually create the ultimate office-scape. I can use this to present into Zoom, into WebEx, into Teams, into anything right here into your software as well, and take the power of VR and bring it to what we do.
I want people to see you. And I think it's awesome. So I'm going to get out of the way. And I'm going to zoom you a little bit larger, because I think that your background is amazing, and then that'll send the point home, okay?
Okay. Let's make you big.
Over to you.
All right. Hey, Shiraz, how you doing? All right. So as you can see, I'm here kind of in this infinite black void. It's very tasteful, very nice in business. But, for me personally, I like a little more attention. So I'm going to come over here to our keynote stage. Here on our keynote stage, I have a 50-foot video wall behind me. I actually have a whole audience here, and I have the ability to do things that you would normally not so much be able to do in the real world. So one of those is I can connect to Sketchfab. And with Sketchfab, I can bring in 3D assets. And in this case, I have the bust of Nefertiti. So I'm going to go hop over here. And this is in an actual museum, but now it's actually here with me in Spaces. And as someone who actually likes education a lot, you can actually present and bring these things in. We have everyone from kindergarten teachers to PhD professors using Spaces right now to teach classes. And that makes us so excited for the future of how you can bring the immersive potential of VR out to people that don't necessarily have it. There's millions of people out there with headsets today who are looking for ways to actually be able to engage. And we're happy to be able to provide a way to do that. So one of the other things we've got here is a lot of backgrounds. And some of these are on our pro plan. And here, this is a Spaces news desk. So I actually can broadcast a live weekly news show here where we talk about the best things in VR. I can have guests join me over here on the multi-channel Zoom and sit behind the anchor desk and tell you why we're having so much fun. But, it's not just about having fun here in VR. One important thing we like to talk about is, using a whiteboard. Now, you might think, well, what's so special about a whiteboard? Well, in this day and age, actually, didn't really have a whiteboard at home, and I like whiteboards a lot. And earlier we were asking and communicating, like, can we hear each other? Yes, we can. So let me erase that real quick and give you a brief explanation of how this kind of works real quick. So here's how this works. We have Spaces the app. So you run Spaces the app on your computer. We have your monitor right here. And if your monitor is anything like ours recently, it is got a lot of zooms. So we take those and bring those here into VR. And then we have a webcam. That's a virtual webcam. And in fact, I'm talking to you on it right now. And we pump this into that virtual webcam, and then we send that over here back into your chat application. So whether you're on OBS, whatever you're using, Spaces works with it. Spaces is actually available right now at spaces.com. You can do this right now for free. So, some of the people were like, hey, it's great, but I really want my own backgrounds to do whatever I want to do with it, or live video. And we're like, okay, green screen. Some people want different avatars. We have wizards. We have custom ones that look like you, powered by our friends at Loom AI. We have an entire ecosystem that's coming online to empower you to do new things using VR. We're really excited. We have a Discord community of nearly 1,000 people now that are telling us every day how they're using Spaces. And that excites us, but it also teaches us what we need to add to the software. And I see I've got Catherine here with me. And actually, Catherine, now that you're back, I can show something kind of important. I can see you.
Cool.
So,
wow.
Right. So this is not just about like a lonely VR experience. This is about actually engaging and us being able to have conversations. I move that.
So if I were sharing a video, could you also share it there?
Exactly. So I can actually, since this is actually my desktop, I can actually put like a PowerPoint, I can put anything I want right here on this desktop and actually share it. I can open up a YouTube video and we can watch that here and share to everybody.
This is really meta. So you're adding multiple dimensions to the Zoom call. So instead of the 2D, you're adding that 3D, even if you have that just one headset. So if it's your tech guy or your IT guy or your communications person, that one person can be the central focus of an entire call.
Much like in a real meeting, often where you have one person at a whiteboard leading it, the discussion, and everyone throwing out ideas and working through that, you can do that in Spaces right now, and you don't actually have to have a whiteboard at home. And also, you can always look nice and have nice clothes on.
Well, that's always good. Certainly these days when most people are spending their time in pajamas. Not my thing. No judgment, though. I wanted to ask you, can you give us an example of some of the ways that your clients have been using it recently? So education is one obvious example. What are some of the other ways?
So we've been fascinated that webinars have become a big use case. So we have people that are giving 200-person webinars multiple times a week that are sales presentations using our tool. They load up their PowerPoints, they put them here on the screen, just like I'm talking with you right now. And they actually run through their whole presentation, but they're able to bring in their products in 3D. They're able to give this fantastic looking presentation for sales, and they're actually seeing conversions. They're seeing it be effective, a more effective webinar than what they were able to do just days before.
Let me ask you this. What about the assets? I mean, we looked at a 3D, never TD, and some people say that it takes forever to do a 3D model, or you need an Azure Connect to be able to make a free model from scratch. How do you import the assets?
Well, I'm glad you asked. So I'm going to jump over here and grab this sea turtle. In this case, actually, this is an Atlantic loggerhead sea turtle. So this is a Creative Commons model from the Sketchfab platform. So our system Spaces connects to a variety of platforms. You just log in with your Sketchfab account into Spaces, and Sketchfab has 200,000 Creative Commons models. So there's tons of stuff you can search for and bring in.
So those people who don't know, Sketchfab is an enormous platform. It's almost like Getty Images, but it's for 3D images. So that if you have a Sketchfab account, just like if you had a Getty Images account, you would be able to pull up images of many, many things. And obviously, as the VR evolution continues, there will certainly be more and more different types of objects you could pull in ready-made. But what about your own profile or portfolio? I mean, yours is a very realistic-looking avatar. You even have the mask, so compliments to you. That's very, very extra safe. What about the rest of us? How do we create avatars?
Well, that's a great question. So we are lucky that we are partnered with really good friends of ours who are another startup that actually came out of DreamWorks as well, Loom AI. So Loom has a phenomenal avatar system. We're partnered, just like you log in with Sketchfab, you log in with Loom. So if you download the Loom AI app on your phone, you can completely
Okay.
customize and design your avatar to look like what you would like it to look like, and then hit save and export to Spaces, and then just come on here in Spaces, and you can look like you.
All right, you're really confusing me now with all these different looks.
Sorry, it's a little presto change though. Like, but the point is that we have a wide variety and flexibility. We cover, a lot of
Okay.
diversity and styles, and it's because that's important to us.
Well, that's real world. Let me ask you, how long does it take if you do the Loom, the Loom scan with AR?
It literally takes about a minute and a half. So you
Wow.
literally sit on the app for about although I will say, I actually spent like a few more minutes in the app this morning, because you can go back into the app and make changes. So this morning I was trying to decide what I wanted to wear for this interview. And I was like deciding between, like, do I want to go with the blazer? Do I want to go with like the skinny jeans with the shoes? So even though my face and everything were done, I'm like sitting there spending longer than I normally would going over my wardrobe to make sure I felt good for this.
Well, you look great. Thank you very much for that. So what else have you got to tell us about this? I noticed you also have a watch on that, so you can even set a timer for your presentations. I think that's really useful.
I do. So one of the early things that came up from folks was like, hey, this is great, but I need to know the time because I'm actually giving a timed webinar. So we actually have clocks all over Spaces now that give you an update as to what time it is. And then things like being able to set timers and keep an eye on it are really critical for people that live in the world of giving presentations.
Well, this is fantastic. And tell us about, some of the corporations. How do they get in touch with you? How hard is it for them to upload it? What do they need to get started with this application?
Oh, so we support more than a dozen VR headsets. We support 24 different video chat sharing applications. If you just go to www.spaces.com, you can download the free version and try it out this moment. All you need
Wow.
is a VR headset that can connect to a PC, and we're working on bringing a native Quest version out as well.
Okay, so when do you expect the native Quest version to be available?
As soon as we can get it done.
Okay, well, I know that you've pivoted recently, and I'm going to bring Shiraz back onto the screen with us. I know you pivoted recently to this specific platform. It's only been a month, gentlemen. Congratulations. It's a tremendous pivot, and I think something that's very useful. I've not seen this elsewhere, which is one of the reasons why I was so keen to have you on board, because I think communication from a distance in an era of social distancing is with us to stay, unfortunately. But it's also, I think, once people become accustomed to it, they'll also realize the tremendous advantage that this brings us when you're able to bring in so many assets from the other world.
Yeah, I mean, that's right. I love when we were playing around with the early prototype. We just found ourselves having meetings where one of us would be on the grease board and just sketching out ideas and things that the whole group was, providing. And it really worked well. It was really magical, and I think a lot of people never realize how important it is to connect VR users to non-VR users, and it does make everyone, I think, on the call, just like this one, productive, and it's also engaging and entertaining. Plus, Brad's got a cool little fidget ball.
So, so I'm a fidgeter during meetings. That's just kind of who I am and the type of person. So I added a fidget that you can actually like spin and play with here in VR and toss around. And then someone had the idea to add a scoreboard to it, so it tells you how far you've managed to throw it.
Well, a great way to pay attention in the space. But what's it like to actually spend an hour in a headset on a conference call? Do you feel like you get lost? What's the feeling like?
No, honestly, I've been spending 4 to 5 hours a day for the last 3 weeks in a headset in conference calls like this. It actually makes it more enjoyable for me. So I have a reasonable sized monitor at home, but in here I actually can have a 150-inch screen. I can see everybody really clearly. I can sit comfortably in my chair and I can do work, but I can actually just look at everybody as if I had like a giant home theater.
Wow, that's amazing. And Shiraz, how's it feel for you? I mean, you're at home. with obviously in your home office, what's it like when you put on the headset?
It's kind of it takes a little window that we're all boxed up at home. We all are looking through these little windows right now, just like you and I can see each other. It really kind of opens up just your vision in a lot of ways. You can see and feel like you're in a larger space, which is really important. Also, I think that people find it more engaging. So just like we're talking to Brad here, it becomes almost like just a more productive way to communicate versus I think the same old, like we're all very rigid, staring at the camera, looking like this, and liberating, I think is probably the best word I could put to it.
It's interesting that you mentioned, staring at the camera, because you will see people sort of slumped over after a while as if they were kids in some sort of lecture in school.
Yeah.
I remember when I went back to study virtual reality and augmented reality at the New York Film Academy, I spent months in VR. And on a cold, rainy day in my apartment in New York, I really could spend hours, because when VR is done well, it is really magical and it can transport one. And I think that that's one of the things people don't realize about VR, because often they'll be exposed to some roller coaster ride or some really badly executed VR experience. Can you talk to us about the content that you're seeing and why you think that it's going to become a platform that we'll be using much more in the future?
Yeah, sure. So I think the interesting thing is that one interesting thing that we're seeing right now is most of the time when people create VR, they're creating it for VR users, right? They create VR applications and games, and they're selling to VR users. This is the first application we've seen where it's a VR application really for non-VR users, right? Brad's in VR, but it's really for our benefit, not just his own. And so we made this presentation software and communication software so that you can have people of all walks of life, whether they're a teacher or a salesman, bring in content relative and relevant to them, just like what Brad has up here to present. So we're trying to build this as a platform that lets, content creators from all walks of life bring kind of their life into spaces so that they could share with people, on Zoom and Skype and things like that.
I think it's a really great point that you just brought up, because I had the New York City Tech Creatives. There's 3,000 tech creatives in New York. Some of them are very new to the XR and 3D space, and some of them have been working in it far longer. But even when you come together to do something like we did an augmented reality art walk, and suddenly you realize the entire arc of activities that need to be done, and it can be quite time intensive. When I think that something like this really shortcuts that, because you're able to share 3D content, but immediately without having to create something ex novo. I mean, either you get it off the shelf or you can, convert it from your real world into that experience.
Yeah, this is a great example of content. The avatars, so we found a lot of teachers like to use more, fantasy-like characters to engage with their students. And frankly, we kind of like using them too, just for any.
Brad, I think it's great.
Tell the story about.
Sorry.
Oh, Catherine, sorry. I was just going to say there was a great story from one of our users who uses this for work, but on weekends with his grandkids. Brad, why don't you share?
Yeah, so we're really excited to hear that not only are people using this in a business setting, but they're using it in creative, fun, and family entertaining settings too. So he was actually connecting through Spaces over Skype and actually entertaining his grandkids and having hour-long story time and changing between all the characters and making up and improving a fantasy story directly to his grandkids over Skype on the big TV in their living room.
I have a feeling that I'm talking about new resources and new tools and platforms. And one of the things I think that, I always liken it to the early iPhone, when the apps created this huge ecosystem unto themselves that nobody really could have anticipated. And this is a great case in point. So I can imagine where, a lot of platforms like, Unreality, which is coming up, and not so much the Vive ecosystem because that's closed or something else, but the new YouTube can really be evolved here with 3D spaces. And I'm waiting for the new YouTube on VR. I think that's going to be an interesting space to watch. I did want to point out that a lot of people also think, I think incorrectly, that the virtual spaces that they see are like game spaces, because often people will see platforms where it looks very cartoon-like, but it doesn't have to be. How would you address that to people who are still a bit skeptic and say, I really just want this to be corporate?
Yeah, so originally that was we had a very cartoon landscape. Our first environment that we created, but we had all kinds of people come to us that were teachers, pharmaceutical reps, salespeople saying, the little fantasy elf wizard is cool, but can I have like a more businessy character and maybe a more professional environment? And so that's where our pro version of Spaces comes in, which is for professionals. And Brad, you want to speak to that?
So a big piece of what we heard from people is they wanted to support us, so that certainly made us happy. Another piece that we heard that we felt was really important was how this can actually become part of their normal workday. How can they expand this and get the results of having a premium environment, things that look really good? So we heard that feedback, and then we focused on being able to add professional environments, professional avatars, as well as things like being able to green screen and multi-camera features, so you can actually run webinars easier from inside of Spaces. So that's where the professional version comes in, and we just launched that, and we just started having people sign up for that this morning.
Okay, well, I think I'm going to wrap it up with that. I'm going to show again that they should download Spaces for free now and try it out, and that you're going to be developing a capability for Quest. Quest is now on a backlog, obviously, with the demand that we're seeing for virtual reality explode. We think that this is going to be a tremendously useful tool, because Zoom is still going to be, or continue to be, the primary business platform over the foreseeable future. So it's wonderful that you have pivoted and created this very useful tool. Gentlemen, thank you so much for your time today. I commend you on your tremendous work. Please keep us updated, and meanwhile, keep up with the good work.
Thank you, Catherine.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
All right, well, that's it. Thank you. That's it for us today. Please tune in on Wednesdays at 3 p.m. for the Back to Business series, and we will have more case studies and top-level overview of where this industry is going. Meanwhile, thanks so much for the gentlemen at Spaces, Shiraz Akmal and Brad Herman, to show one of the tools that I think is helping bridge the gap that we're currently facing. So thank you again, gentlemen, and everyone watching. Thank you. Have a great day. Bye-bye.
Bye.